I'm Patrick Bailey with whiteboardcoder.com. Today is January 31st, 2021, and in this video I'm reinstalling nodeexporter on Ubuntu 20.04 box and getting my Prometheus set up to start scraping it. Okay, before we get started, a real quick bookkeeping. So for those who may need this, I have another video on installing Prometheus on Ubuntu 20.04, and I'll put a link in the show notes to that. Also, on this video, if it's more convenient to go kind of copy and paste, I've already done a blog post on this, so you can probably copy and paste some of the stuff I'm doing on this video. A couple of articles I used to help me out with this video are this one, How to Install Prometheus on Ubuntu 16.04. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes. And Monitoring Linux Host with nodeexporter, which is actually from the Prometheus site. And then also we'll actually be using this, the nodeexporter GitHub page. I'll actually be using this at some point during this video. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So just to show what's going on, here I am. What I'm going to do is I've already installed Prometheus, and that's running on this box. So I'm going to install a nodeexporter on the same box and kind of scrape that information from the same box. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with nodeexporter, but if you're familiar with Prometheus, nodeexporter is going to expose a lot of generic Linux information you may need. Memory usage, hard drive space, things like that. Really useful tool. We use a lot. I use it in my day job too. So I think I like it a lot. So first of all, let me do an LSB release -A to show you that I am on Ubuntu 20.04. And the first thing I want to do is do a sudo user add no create home. We're going to make a nodeexporter user. I'll say shell boom bin false. That's because I don't want this user to actually log in, at least not easily. And I'll say nodeexporter. So I'll make this user, which I think I've already done this in my last video, so this might return, yeah, already exists, but that's the command you need to run to make that guy. Okay, so now next, let's go over to the GitHub page. And this is the kind of if we want the latest release. So here, they happen to have the latest release over here. I can go click on this over here from their GitHub page and scroll down, and I'm going to want the tar.gz64. There we go. Let's see now, where am I going? Yep, tar AMD 64. There we go, that guy. So I'll right click on that and I will copy that link address, and I'll come back to here and say wget, boom, paste the address in, download it, shouldn't take too long, and there, now I've got that nodeexporter down. So now we'll unpack it. So I'll take tar xvf and nodeexporter, boom, unpack this guy. And then we'll start moving some stuff around. So sudo copy, let me just do a clear here, boom. Sudo copy nodeexporter, and we'll copy the actual nodeexporter binary. We'll put it in user local bin, boom, there we go. And then we'll change the ownership of it. So sudo change owner nodeexporter, user local bin nodeexporter, boom. That just makes it easier for my nodeexporter user to run this command. Okay, now I need to put one thing that nodeexporter can also do. You can actually tell nodeexporter to go look at another folder and say, hey, I'm going to put some extra data in here, so go scrape that folder for extra data. So I'm going to make another folder here where I'm going to put information. So I'll make directory -p Prometheus, and I'll say metrics. That's just what I'm going to call it. And then from there, I'll do a sudo, kind of change the ownership on that guy too. Prometheus, metrics, boom. Okay, now, next thing. I want to set okay, next thing I want to set up systemd. So I'll do a sudo vylib, let's see, systemd, system, and I'll call it nodeexporter.service, boom. And here I'll kind of cut and paste what I have over here in my notes. And nothing too special. Now, if you watched my last video, there were some issues with a time sync, but here I'm exposing data that's going to be scraped, so I don't really need to worry too much about a time sync, so I'll just kind of leave this as is with the network online. Say the user is going to be nodeexporter, group will be nodeexporter, And let me pull this out. And then here I'm going to run the node exporter. And I'll also have it set to restart always. And I give it a 10-second delay if that happens. Now, you can just run it like this, just with that command, and you're probably good. But if you want to scrape some more information, I add this other little bit here that says, hey, go look at the Prometheus metrics folder. So you need to add that bit and also put what folder you're going to put your extra metrics in, and it will look there. And if there's nothing there, that's okay, but also gives you that option to put information there that's correctly formatted for Prometheus. It'll scrape it and pull it in. Okay, so we say that's good. And I will say, let's see, sudo system control. I want to enable it. Node exporter so that it'll reboot. It'll start up on a reboot. And so go look at the status. And we should see that it is enabled. So it will start up on a reboot. And let me go start it. So I'll just go start it right now. And now what we can do is we can do a quick test. So I can do a curl. So I'll do a curl localhost 9100. And let's see. 9100 metrics. If I do that, we should pull data. So there is data there. So hooray. Also, I can go out here, and I think I've got it open here. Oh, well, I'm not quite yet. Let me back out. Let me exit my Prometheus. I'm pulling ports just to make my life simpler for testing. So I'll pull localhost 9100. And for those who aren't familiar with pulling ports, I'm basically on that server, it's serving the information on port 9100. I'm SSH in there and pulling that port over here so I can have port 9100 on my local server actually hit that guy. So now if I go there, pop over there, I run a quick test here, and I see the metrics here. A little nicer way to see it, but boy, we are working. So good. But now, even though it's working, we're not actually scraping it. So if I go over here to my Prometheus, which happens to be on the same server, localhost 9090, I pull the port. I can go here to targets. Go to targets, and I can see I'm pulling, from my last video, I'm pulling some of the Prometheus specific metrics, but that's it. I'm not pulling this node exporter. The node exporter is on 9100. This one's on 9090, so I'm not pulling that information yet. So I need to go edit my Prometheus settings. So I'll do a sudo vi prometheus.yaml, and I'll go edit that. Now that's where I put my Prometheus server, a YAML file. It isn't necessarily there. That's not the default place, but that's where I did it in my settings, so your mileage may vary. Now I'll do a little copy and paste here to save some time. Boom. Okay, let me clean this up a little bit. So we made another job. So this part, here's our scrape configs. We're doing this really simple. We're actually doing it hard-coded. We're saying, hey, scrape this specific server at the specific port. So that's our Prometheus one. Here's our node exporter one. We're going to say node exporter, and we're going to say hit this local server here at 9100. So now, if I save that off, I just need to restart. So let me do a sudo system control restart. But I need to restart Prometheus, because Prometheus isn't yet using our new scrape config. So I'll hit restart Prometheus. We can go check the status of it real quick. Boom, it's running, good. Now if I go back here, look at my targets. Boom, I got that target, 9100. It looks like it's hitting it, we're getting information. Well, it looks like it's hitting and it's happy. So now what we can do is we can go over here to graph, and we could put some information. Now we could go here and pull one of these pieces and just search for it. That would work too. But here I got one written down, so I'll look for node, CPU, and I'll say mode equals system. Boom, boom, and I will execute that, and we have no data. What did I do wrong here? Did something here. Let me see. Let me delete that part and just say execute. Let me look over here. No, CPU. Oh, I did something. I'm missing something here. Well, let's go with a different one. I must have chosen the wrong one. Let me go with node CPU seconds total. So I'll just grab that one real quick. And we'll put that guy in. Boom, run that guy. Boom, we got data. And so now I can go click on graph if I want to, and we can see, we'll narrow our time down to 10 minutes. And we can see we're actually pulling data. We can see we're pulling it from localhost 9100, so we are successfully pulling. But now, custom data. Before I go into custom data, so I'm pulling from my localhost. We can repeat this process. I could do this on another server, but if I do it on another server, I need to go update my scrape config to scrape from that other server. And I may do that in another video, but right now, just know it's a similar process. But now the thing we want to do is custom data. Custom data is very interesting. So now let's go into setting a simple Python program to make some random data and to get us some custom outputs. Okay, custom data. Now, if we look in our Prometheus, let's see, Prometheus metrics folder, there's nothing there right now. And quite literally, this is formatted correctly to ingest. I could take some piece of data here, like this node exporter. I could copy all that, change the name, stick it in there, and it would start to ingest that information as long as it's correctly formatted. But what's going to do, it's going to scrape on its interval, and whatever's there is what's going to be right there. So we want to actually be updating that every minute in this test. So what we're going to do is we're going to go write a little script in Python, and let's see, sudo make directory, sudo make directory Prometheus code, and sudo vi Prometheus code, and we'll call this Prometheus random.py. And I'm going to copy and paste all this stuff and not go into too much detail because it's pretty simple Python code. Boom. So all we're saying is, hey, we're using random here. We're saying, hey, look in this directory. And so I'm basically saying, hey, does that directory exist? If so, fine. If not, we're going to exit. And then we're going to put together some random data. So we're going to say my test data is 01, 02, and 03. And we're going to make them all gauges. I'm not going to go into too much detail to this. There's these comment sections, and part of the comment section tells you what type it is. A gauge or a counter. A counter continually goes up. A gauge is kind of like your miles per hour on your car, how fast you're going. So I'm just saying, hey, grab a random number between 1 and 100 and assign it to data 1, data 2, data 3. And then take all this and write it out to mydata.prom. Now that does not have to have .prom at the end of the name. It's just, I do that for convenience. It's just going to read a text file and ingest it. So overall, pretty simple. We will save that. And right now, I will change the ownership of everything. So I'll say change owner, node exporter, node exporter, boom, node exporter, and we'll say Prometheus code. Boom, and Prometheus there. And also I'll say, I want to make it executable. That's just how I like to do things. User plus executable, Prometheus code, Prometheus random. Not change owner, change mod. How about that? Change mod. Boom. Okay, now we're good to go. So now I could do this. I'll execute it as the node exporter just for a second. I'll just run it one time. So sudo node exporter. So I'll run this command as the node exporter, but he doesn't have a shell. So I have to assign the shell, and then I'll say Prometheus code Prometheus random.py. Boom. So I'll run that. And you don't like me. Okay, I must have, oh, good example where I did something wrong. Prometheus code, Prometheus. Oh, there we go, perfect, right there on line 1. Copy and paste error. Let me get rid of that little I. Oh, let me do this as sudo since I changed ownership. There we go, perfect example, bad code. Get rid of that I on that first line and we should be good. Line 6, does not like line 6. Okay, I did something wrong here. Let's see. Okay, let me go examine my code here. Something went wrong. Okay, I figured out what I was doing wrong. So I can do what I was doing is sudo switch user node exporter. I want to run this as a node exporter, but they don't have a shell, so I have to assign a shell bin bash. So I'll repeat my problem. So here's my problem. Then I did Prometheus code Prometheus random. So if I try to run this, it doesn't work. I got to put a C in here. So I put a C in here. That's the command. Now to run the command. Fun stuff. So now what I can do is I do a cat, let's see, Prometheus, metrics. Now my data problem is there. So I do a cat real quick. We see we have data. It's just random data. So I see 90, 32. If I go run this command again, do a cat again, see that 32 became a 45. So it's randomly doing this. So now if I go back and do my curl localhost metrics, let me do a sudo clear. This data will show up. So if I do a curl local, I can do it silent. Do silent localhost 9100 metrics. It'll pull all that stuff in, but there's a ton of stuff, and so we just want to get the stuff that we care about. So I'll say I'll do an egrep, and I'll grep for my test data. Boom. And we'll see. There's my test data. And if I go over to my code, if I go over and pull this up again, remotely, if I look for my test data, I can see my test data is in there. And now if I just choose number 1 and I go back over here and search for that one, we can see I got data, but you can see it's jumping around because it's just random, right? Now, if I'm going to do something like this, I want to change that data. Right? If I leave it like right now, what I've done, it'll stay, my data right now is 88. It'll stay at 88 forever, and that's useless, right? So I'm just going to make a really quick cron job that just runs it every minute, which is a nice test to see how things are going. So I'll do a sudo vi etc cron.d, and I'll make it what I call it, my fake data. Call it my fake data. And in here, we will run this command. So let me copy and paste this guy. So I'm going to say every 5 minutes, as the node exporter user, run this command. Let me change that. For this video, let me change 5 minutes to every minute. So let me remove that. So every minute, it's going to change data. So now, if I clear this and I run this curl again, we'll see my test data. We can see it's 45. And here I'll do a sleep. I'll say sleep 60 seconds. And then I'll run the next command. So that assures me that a minute will have passed. So of course I'll fast forward this part of the video. But we should see this 88 will now become some other random number. And then I can just let this keep going and keep going. And that way I can come back in a couple hours or a day and I can just see this neat graph that kind of hops around. And there we go. So now it's 51. We can see the data is changing. Perfect. If I come back here and execute this, we can see, yeah, I'm at 51. And we'll see these numbers jump around over time, right? So let me go the last 15 minutes. We'll see that jump around. Now, one thing to note, if you actually use this to pull in data, which I do in some of my programming, it's kind of nice. You got to be aware of one of the pitfalls is this thing will scrape that data, whatever's there. So what you're going to probably do is you're going to write some program that does some kind of analysis, gathers data, puts it in Prometheus format, and sticks it there. Now, what happens, and this is from experience, I had it happen to me, what happens if your Python program fails, and it fails to make a new file? Well, if your old file is still there, now your data looks static. So let's say your thing fails, and I'm speaking from experience, and a week later you didn't notice it. So now your data just stays the same, which may make it look like everything's okay. So the data didn't change because the file was never updated, and just kind of get this flat line of whatever you're doing. So what I would suggest, if you're going to do this, it's great to do a cron job, but you want to have as another cron job that's going to look and delete the data. So if you're going to run this every 5 minutes, I would say, let's say you run something on the hour. I would say, 5 minutes before the hour, delete that file. In fact, we did that one time, which is kind of naive. If you delete it and then make it again, you have this gap of time. So what you want to do, which is the best thing to do, is run something. Let's say you run every 5 minutes. run something else every 15 minutes or 10 minutes that basically when it runs, it goes and looks at that file and says, hey, is that file older than 15 minutes? If so, delete it. That way, you may have a couple of screw-ups where, hey, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, then you check, hey, has that file been updated in 15 minutes? You could have a few things where you have two redundant pieces of data, but at least you're not deleting the file. So if everything's going fine, you don't have to do anything. But you say, hey, go back. If this file is over 15 minutes, delete it. That way, if you get in a wonky state, that file wipes out, your information goes away, and now maybe you're setting off alarms or you're seeing something going on. So that's a gotcha, and a good thing to do if you're going to go this way. But I like this tool. You get all the good metrics for the Linux, and you also have the easy ability to script out some of your own metrics and throw it in there and get it. But with that caveat, make sure that you are not going to leave static data up there if your program should fail to make new data. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a like. To subscribe, just click the subscribe button. Also, you can follow me on Twitter under the handle @whiteboardcoder.com. View any code I may have thrown up as a gist at GitHub under the username PatmanDenver, or check out my blog site at whiteboardcoder.com.